Hey, pickleball friends. Boy, do we have a story brewing. Some of you may have heard about what's being called Paddlegate that happened this last weekend at the Minto US Open. Um, if so, I have a couple uh, updates, some recent statements put out. If you haven't heard of it, buckle up. This is going to get interesting. It's already some pickleball drama, and it's going to get um, more interesting. So what happened was the Minto US Open was the last 2 weekends of April, and the first weekend featured men's pro singles, and in short, uh, the gold medal match was between Ben Johns and J.W. Johnson, and it was an epic. It was an absolute thriller. If you haven't seen it yet, I posted a video of that match. You should check it out. I guess I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but it's a good one. Um, in that match, J.W. Johnson uses the Carbon 1 16-inch third generation carbon paddle, and I won't say what medal he got if you haven't seen it, but he medaled at least, and so that was on Sunday, April 24th. Fast forward to Friday, April 29th. Out of nowhere, as the tournament is going on, uh, the Minto US Open Pickleball Championships Twitter page releases the following tweet. Carbon recalled their paddles on Friday, April 29. As part of the recall, they asked all players using their paddles to not use them. The US Open requests all players still playing in the Open to honor Carbon's recall and not use the paddle at the Open. Now, that came out of nowhere, so it was a surprise to everyone, especially the people playing at the tournament with one of the carbon paddles. The next day, USA Pickleball on their social media sites posted a release that seemed to be referencing the same topic. And in that release, USA Pickleball indicated that on Friday, April 29th, USA Pickleball removed all carbon paddles from the approved paddle list. So that's a pretty significant step up from Carbon recalling their paddles and taking care of the issue. This is, one day later, USA Pickleball is removing all carbon paddles from the approved paddle list. They go on to remind us that these paddles were originally tested and approved by USA Pickleball 2021 after receiving several recent reports about the play characteristics. They deemed follow-up testing to be required. They secured paddles, did an infield test, then sent it back to the lab for an official retest. And I guess at the lab, the 2 commercially available carbon paddles did not meet the standards and specifications necessary to remain approved for sanctioned tournament play. And further investigation reveals that they didn't meet the standards for surface texture. The texture was too rough, too much friction, and too much spin capability. Shortly thereafter, the PPA Tour posted on its social media the following release. PPA Tour will continue to abide by the USA Pickleball paddle specification guidelines and only allow paddles that are on the approved list to be used in competition. This is basically their way of saying, don't even think about using carbon paddles in our next, in PPA tournaments, including and not limited to the next weekend, where there will be a PPA tournament. Not going to happen. And they added a new update, which is starting on May 15, 2022, the PPA Tour will be instituting on-site paddle testing protocols for all professional divisions. Obviously, there's no specifics on what paddle testing protocols specifically are going to be instituted, and whether they're going to test for all of the guidelines and the standards for paddles under the USA Pickleball rules. But I'm sure they're figuring that out as we speak, and they'll probably release another update letting players know what's going on going forward after May 15th. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. On that same day, still April 30th, we get an update from Joola on its social media sites. And it says, we are aware of a video with an incomplete field test on some of our paddles. We've complied with all USA Pickleball guidelines, and all our paddles are USAPA approved. We believe in fair play, and if official laboratory results for our paddles happen to go over limit, we will rectify the issue swiftly. Now, that's a very, I guess, succinct statement they put out. It's almost mysterious in that it's not very specific, but it's very interesting. And here's why. So the video they mentioned, the video is out there on the internet. I'm not going to post it here for a number of reasons, but I can't confirm the accuracy of the contents of the video, so I don't want to lend any legitimacy to it. There's a lot of comments out there, a lot of stories, and I guess you'd call it rumors. So I don't want to engage in that. But I did see it, and I think it was very diplomatic of Joola to call it an incomplete field test, because it is an incomplete field test, but it's a lot. I think it's a lot less than that. And there's a lot of unknowns to this video. If anybody wants to see it, it's out there. If you probably Google it, you'll find it. But just generally speaking, it appears to be someone doing some unofficial surface roughness testing of a couple Joola paddles. And it seems to be implied that this testing was done, or this incomplete unofficial testing was done at the US Open in Florida. But from the video alone, you can't really tell. It suggests that. And it also sounds like AJ Kohler's voice in the video. And there's two, and AJ happened to be playing the Joola Hyperion CFS paddle in the tournament. So that would make sense. The people in the video appear to be wearing apparel with logos that match AJ Kohler's sponsors. So that sort of story seems to check out. But the testing itself is a total unknown. And you know, the paddles are on the edge of a couch or a chair or something, definitely not on a stable surface. And who knows how clean the surface was, these paddles, and whether there's any debris in there that may have you know, altered the readings. And although there's a little bit of commentary about numbers and about likelihood of passing if it were a real test, you can't see the device that's doing the testing close enough to see the numbers, so it's, you know, not exactly reliable on that score. Back to Joola's statement about this incomplete field test. I think it was a good move of Joola to put that statement out, basically to, you know, essentially shoot it down. They could have just ignored it and let rumors, you know, fly around, but they thought they'd just address it and shoot it down real quick. Not only to say that, they're a new company and they've had everything approved, very, very recently, but also, they'll rectify the issue if it, were to come to pass that any of their paddles were tested in an official way in the lab and failed, and that's that. So the newer updates to this story are that on May 1st, CRBN released a statement on its website and its social media, and the one making the statement is the owner and founder of CRBN, Garrett Gosselin, and it's a very heartfelt statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I have it up on the screen here. I know that it's sort of small font, just to cram it all in there. But in short, he tells the story of, at least his side of the story of what happened, and I think it's very detailed and very frank and genuine and informative. He mentions in one part of the statement, or at least makes reference to the fact that in the past, other paddle companies have had issues, or not serious issues, but maybe produced, as he says, unintentional non-compliant batches of paddles and received official warnings along with the ability to rectify the situation. He doesn't come right out and say it, but I think the point he's trying to make, and I think it's a good point, and a lot of people on the internet are saying this, is that, hey, why didn't you do the same thing for us? Electrum had an issue in the past with a batch of paddles that were a little too much friction on the surface, but you didn't, come out and ban them. You certainly didn't do it in the middle of a tournament, and definitely not a tournament the size of the US Open. So it's odd that you would sort of handle it one way in the past, which is pretty informally, and letting the manufacturer know, giving them a chance to rectify, but not outright banning them or taking them off the approved paddle list. But then it happens with us, CRBN, and you skip right to the most extreme remedy and take our paddles off the approved paddle list. That seems like a bit much. I think that's what he's trying to say, and he does it really diplomatically without sounding like he's complaining or whining. And I think he has a good point. I talked to friends about this and just sort of reviewing the thoughts that are flying around on the internet. I think that a lot of people agree with what he's saying. It seems a bit harsh, and it definitely seems harsh when you look at it in the context of there not seemingly not really being a official, clear-cut, and published policy on how they handle noncompliance. I think he's right about that, and he goes on, to further add that if that were the case, then this may have happened differently. Who's to say if that's accurate? But I think he's got a really good point here, and I feel for Garrett and CRBN with how this was handled. I'm not taking a firm position that USA Pickleball was wrong in doing it like this, but I think Garrett has some good points. And I'll add here too that CRBN is a local company where I'm at. I'm in Southern California, and Garrett plays in tournaments around here, the local ones and the bigger ones, and I've personally met him and had conversations with him about pickleball. He's a stand-up guy. He comes off as very genuine, very honest, and he is passionate about the game like the rest of us. And he's a small company that's just trying to put out good products that the public will love just as much as he loves them. And I think he's done a good job. before the Joola paddles came out, I was very loyal to the carbon paddles I was playing, and I've recommended them to anyone that would listen to me talk about them. And I think they're definitely just starting to catch on, and I was seeing them everywhere. So it's unfortunate that this sort of remedy or punishment was so severe. However, I'll say that because I have met him, and I have heard nothing but good things about him and the way he handles his customers, um, and knowing that he is an honest guy, I have faith that he's going to do right by his customers and do the right thing and remedy the situation however necessary, um, whether that be exchanges, refunds, or whatever the whatever USA Pickleball recommends after they meet. Um, I think he's going to do it, and I think that they'll bounce back, or at least I hope so. Okay, now a further update is that subsequent to Garrett's release and statement, 2 days later, USA Pickleball releases another statement, a follow-up statement on May 3rd on its social media and website. And it seems to be, pretty clear that it's first statement, it's issuing the below statement in response to multiple incidents that arose within the sport last week and ensuing online posts. So they are reviewing those Instagram posts and those Twitter feeds, reading what people are saying, and they wanted to address it. And so they, indicate the purpose statement is to clarify the role and, educate people out there, which is, I think fair. So it goes on to sort of, inform us about the USA Pickleball Equipment Evaluation Committee, the EEC, and their role in this process of testing and ensuring that equipment used in pickleball tournaments are compliant with the rules, and everybody's on the same level playing field. Another interesting part of that is that this statement seems to basically, listen to what Garrett was saying in his statement and respond by laying out a clear public protocol for how testing is going to go, and how they're going to handle um, field tests versus lab tests, and someone reporting a paddle, and that sort of thing. So they basically lay out that there's two types of testing. There's certification testing, which is done in the lab, and then there's compliance testing, which is done typically in the field. And it seems to lay out what probably happened here, and that is if a paddle appears to be non-compliant in the field via in-field tests, it must then be sent to the lab to be tested and receive a certified result. And it adds that if necessary, the product is then removed from the publicly available approved list, even if this occurs during an ongoing competition. Literally laying out what happened. It goes on to essentially echo what Joola said in its very brief statement, that the unauthorized filming and posting of an informal, we call it, conversation involving the USA Pickleball Managing Director of Pro Player Relations and Equipment Compliance in no way represent an official decision that a paddle is not approved. And if that wasn't clear enough, they say, and to clarify further, no Joola paddles are currently being removed from the USA Pickleball approved list. I have to think that Joola asked USA Pickleball to do this, or at least to specify that paragraph, and to be that specific about Joola being still good to go for players to use. But it sort of begs the question that seems to be flying around, which is, was that fair? Uh, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this in the comments, but I hear both sides, and I think there's good arguments on both sides. But I mean, I think it's fair for CRBN to say that that's not fair. Whether the video, the unauthorized, unofficial, informal, quote unquote testing was definitely not in a controlled environment, but it was at least suggestive, and um, there's no indication of what happened after that, or whether USA Pickleball just turned a blind eye to it because it's a bigger company, and CRBN could have an argument that they're just a small guy, um, and their treatment wasn't equal to the treatment to Joola, the big company. So um, you know let me know what you think in the comments. I don't want to take a strong position on this. I'm still trying to take in all the information. I feel for Garrett and CRBN, and I think they're rock solid paddles. They're great paddles, and I hope that they'll remedy the issue and either come out with a new line, or remedy the issue with the existing line, or somehow reach a solution that only has to affect the third generation of the CRBN paddles. I'll do more on that in a second. In the meantime, though, I guess so for the people that saw the video and were freaking out about their new purchase of the Joola paddles, I'd say no need to panic. Both Joola and USA Pickleball seems to shoot down the theory that their paddles are going to be removed from the approved list. Also, that they're going to be good to go, or they are good to go, and I trust that Joola has it under control, and will rectify any issues with its customers if anything were to happen. So in the meantime, an interesting side note. So Ben Johns did an interview with the Dink on around April 1st, where they asked him, why he went with Joola as opposed to some of the other paddle manufacturers, and I think CRBN was brought up, and he mentioned in that interview, you guys might want to check it out, that he was aware at the time in early April, around April 1st, that of some issues that CRBN may have been having with even a current batch not testing within the legal limits, in terms of face friction, and the things that CRBN was doing to remedy the issue. So that's interesting. He also mentioned in that interview his confidence that Joola and its manufacturing processes that have been in place for many years, longer than most pickleball companies, from its work in table tennis paddles, would help to ensure quality control and keep their paddles within the legal limits. It's interesting that he already had awareness of it back then. So some of the other thoughts flying around the internet are that someone reported the CRBN paddles to some USA Pickleball officials that sort of initiated the process of testing those paddles and starting them down the path of being unapproved. And I think most of the opinions out there are that Ben Johns was the one that notified USA Pickleball. I can't say, I don't know, and I have haven't heard any rumors about that. I haven't heard any inside info. Some people say that they have. I haven't, but at least in that interview, he had some awareness of it. So crazier things have happened. But who's to say? Definitely not me. Maybe it's you in the comments.
So further to the issue of the carbon surface friction issue, Garrett indicated in the statement that he believes it's only the third generation of the carbon paddles that have the surface friction that may exceed the roughness standard. So the third generation is the model that has the carbon writing like this, but it's in all caps, and it's bold capital letters. This right here is the second generation. This happens to be a carbon 2 in the second generation, and this is the first generation, the OG model, before they got huge. But the interesting thing about that is Garrett seems to think that generations 1 and 2 should be fine, or may be fine, and the batch that had the surface friction that was a little bit exceeding the standard is Gen 3. I don't know how they're going to handle that. I don't know if they're just going to do exchanges or issue rebates or refunds with Generation 3 or all generations. Who knows? But I will say this. This is Gen 1, and this one seems like it's rougher than my Gen 2. This one feels a bit smoother. And ironically, or maybe not ironically, but interestingly, the Carbon 1, I've used this for, basically since like a week after they came out. And so I've been using it a lot. So it's got heavy use, and I haven't used the Carbon 2 as much. So if this has gotten heavy use and it's still rougher, that's interesting. I would find it hard. Well, I won't say that, but it seems like the first generation has some friction there, and I don't know. I hope and trust that Garrett will do the right thing with all of its customers. He says that. I trust it. He's a good dude. I've met him, and I can't see him saying that and not meaning it. So I'm probably with you guys. If you guys have the carbons and you're wondering what will happen, I have 3 of these, so I'll probably be putting in the request for exchanges or compliant models or whatever is going to happen, just like you guys are. So interesting story. Sorry if I got a little long-winded. I'm curious about what happened and how it happened and why, and all the different opinions out there. I'd love to hear yours. So if you have an opinion on it, leave it in the comments. We'll try to reply to all of them, and we'll share it. I'll put links in the description for the statements, and if you guys could do me a favor and like and subscribe and do the notification bell thing, I'd appreciate it. I have lots of other videos planned, reviews, testing. I've been testing paddles, and I'm going to be posting that stuff. So the more subscriptions and likes and stuff like that I get, the more it enables me to do that and make better videos and better content and just share the love for pickleball. One of the next ones coming up is I'm going to do some comparison of the Franklin X40s versus the Joola Primos, I think they call them, versus the Durafast 40s. Gonna do some specs and some testing and some play. So that's coming up. So if you subscribe and do the notification bell, you'll get the notification when that's posted. All right, take care, guys. Bye.